Last time I recorded one of these Life on Film videos, I asked you all to let me know if you wanted to see more, because me going through some film scans and just talking about these photos, it just seems like something nobody would ever want to watch. At least that's how I always feel, but thankfully so many of you reassured me, so I really appreciate that. I appreciate you watching the videos. We are getting caught up on the backlog. As you can see, there are not that many rolls left, so it feels good to finally be catching up. Today we're going to be taking a look at some HP5. Some of these rolls were pushed to 1600, some of the rolls were pushed to 3200. All of the film is 120. It's various formats from different cameras over the years. We've got stuff from probably 2015 or so all the way up to 2022. So there's a good mix of different stuff in here, but I want to see how the film has held up, not only being pushed, but also sitting undeveloped for that long. So we'll go through the photos. I'll tell you a little bit about them, what cameras were used, and just see how the film has held up. So big shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. If you need a website, go to squarespace.com/MattDay. Use code MattDay for 10% off. I'll tell you more about them in a little bit, but for now, let's jump into these film scans. These first photos are all 645 format. These were shot with the Contax 645 that I borrowed from Midwest Photo all those years ago. I think we looked at some in the last video from that camera as well. Never owned it, but really enjoyed shooting with it. If you hear Forest in the background, welcome to our house. But the first photos we're looking at here, these were all pushed to 1600. I developed the film in Ilford HC, which has been my go-to developer for years. However, I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the 3200 scans, because there's just some stuff to share there. But overall, zooming into these, I think the film really has held up pretty well over the years. It hasn't always been cold stored, so that's another thing I usually would try to do, is keep the film in the fridge if I'm not going to be developing it for a while. But a lot of this stuff, you know, with moving to different offices as well, the film has kind of been all over the place with me. Taker, this little distinguished gentleman sitting here in the bay window at the old house. The dogs, our cat, our kids even, they were always climbing up here and watching the traffic go by. All right, we got some 6x7 now. Again, still HP5 pushed to 1600. These were shot with the RZ67. I do remember shooting these, and as you can tell, for some of these, as close as I'm focusing with a 6.7 camera, that's usually a good sign. It was either the RB67 or RZ. Around this time, I was shooting with the RZ. Nora here when she was just a baby. She's here with Molly's mom in this photo. That is one big fat chunky baby. There are a few guarantees in life, at least for me. Number one, I'm always going to shoot with different cameras and change my mind about cameras and swap them out like they're nothing. And also, Molly and I make big fat babies. It just is what it is. Now we're jumping into 6x6. This is still HP5 at 1600, but I shot these with the Rolleiflex 2.8F, which would date this roll around 2016, late 2016, I think. The roll said Rolly Test, so this was probably one of the first rolls I put through the Rolleiflex. Speaking of Rolleiflex, if you haven't seen it, the most recent video is on the Rolleiflex T, something I've been shooting with a little bit lately, so check that one out if you haven't already. And there is the Rolleiflex 2.8F, and what is that hair? This was in that stage of like, okay, I'm going to grow my hair out. I've never done that before, but yeah, sure, I'll try that. And nothing ridiculous. I would have never left the house, with my hair like that. I pretty much wore a hat for, a good year straight, but here I am showing these on YouTube. That is Appalachian Uncle Jesse. At least the Rolleiflex looks good. Molly and Nora sleeping on the couch. About an hour ago, as I'm recording this, Molly and Forrest were in basically the exact same position on our couch just now. Take all the naps you can get when they're at that age. Looks like we've got some overlapping frames, some spacing issues here. Shortly after I got the camera, I went ahead and sent it out for a CLA and got a new focusing screen put in. But if I remember right, I don't think I even knew that the camera was having this issue. I don't think any of the other rolls that I had developed before sending it out had any of these overlapping frames. So it's a good thing I went with that CLA. This roll, you can kind of tell some of that aging. If you look up here at the top of the frame, it's almost like these little kind of splotches of white. It's kind of hard to describe, but It doesn't look like normal film grain or anything, and I've only seen that on older rolls, so I feel like that's just due to the fact that the film has been slowly degrading over time. And now we're jumping all the way to 2022, and these rolls were shot at 3200. Now, typically I do dilution 1 to 31 with Ilford HC, and when I went to develop this roll, I was looking for developing times, and I realized Ilford HC only has developing times up to 1600 with HP5. They have times if you're doing dilution 1 to 15, but when I was developing, I was at the very last bit of my bottle of HC, and I didn't have enough for that dilution. All I had enough for was the typical 1 to 31 dilution. So I went ahead and used the 1 to 31 dilution anyway and just kind of guessed on the time, and I believe I developed it for 18 minutes, and, you know, upon at least just looking at the negatives when I pulled them out of the tank, everything looked good, so we'll see how they hold up actually being scanned in. This is filmed from early 2022, like right after we moved in. I was shooting this with the Pentax 672, and a lot of this, I believe, is probably with the 75 f2.8 AL. That lens was incredible. I used it for probably like 90 to 95% of the photos that are going to be in my upcoming book, Surveyor. And around this time, I was just getting used to it, trying to make sure I was actually going to hit focus, especially shooting up that close. With that lens, you can close focus, and wide open, that close up, it's pretty easy to miss focus. My little makeshift desk, it was actually this table that I'm sitting at right now, just wheeled it into our dining room and was working there for a little bit as we kind of got settled in. And well, as we'll see in a little bit, this room that I'm filming in now wasn't quite ready yet. The animals around the house, Elliot sitting there on the couch, listening to music and hanging out with Strawberry. I love this one here, just Elliot's hand laying there on Strawberry. And yeah, she's a thick girl. It's just, you know, it is what it is. She's got a lot of love in there. We hit the jackpot finding that cat. She was about half past dead in our backyard, but look at her now. Elliot and a massive, massive pile of Lego in our dining room. It's one of those things like, hey, I'm moving in the entire house and getting things set up. Molly was super pregnant at the time with Forrest, so I basically moved our entire household by myself, and this was one of the ways to just keep the kids busy while I was putting things together. Here's a look at this room while it was under some renovation and some updates, I guess. This office, which you can't really see right now with this black backdrop, but you've seen it a lot over the last, almost 2 years now, which is crazy that we've been here since then. I've changed this room up a lot since we moved here, but originally, before we lived here, when my parents lived here, this was my mom's kind of craft room. She would sew and make quilts in here, make scrapbooks, that kind of thing, typical mom stuff. And this was where she did all of that. And so when we moved in here, there were cabinets and countertops and stuff. The room was basically made specifically for her to have that kind of space. So the way it was configured wasn't really going to work for my needs, my workflow, my things that I have in here, all of the photo books that take up most of the room. So I took everything out, made some changes with the paint and the drywall, and it was a whole process. I actually recorded like a lot of that process, and I've wanted to make a video kind of just talking about this room and what it was before versus how I'm using it now, and just share the process of making the updates. So if you'd like to see that video, also let me know in the comments, because clearly I've put that video off for almost 2 years now, but I would kind of like to share a little bit more about the story and also just how I use this room and how I've set it up. And this roll, when I pulled it out of the tank, I thought, I didn't really know what this was going to look like scanned in, or really what it was from. I vaguely remember late at night being outside and just seeing the light hitting the snow outside of our garage. And I just remember kind of playing around with slow shutter speeds and shooting things, out of focus and in focus, just experimenting and playing for the sake of experimenting and playing. And yeah, I've got a whole roll of just that, so might make a good phone background or something. Overall, I think guessing for the time on the developing for the 3200 rolls, I think they've held up pretty well. There is one roll in here of HP5 Pushed to 6400, which was also shot in like February of 2022. So we'll get to that roll, and when that comes up, I'll share the results here in one of these videos. And I'll be developing again soon, but when I ran out of Ilford HC, I went to reorder some, and I had been kind of working through my supply for a while. I usually stock up to get me through as long as possible, and I realized that here in the States, Ilford HC is almost $100. Doesn't matter where you order it from. And what? I shared this on Instagram, and a lot of you from the UK were saying, no, it's still, 40 pounds or whatever over there. But over here, it's just gotten so expensive. I'm assuming it has something to do with importing it here. But as a result of that, I had to find a different option because I'm not going to pay for 1 liter of developer for $100. So I went ahead and got some Kodak HC110. They've changed the formula up. I think I read it was around 2019. I used this developer years and years ago, but I've switched over to Ilford chemicals for a pretty long time now. So I went ahead and got some of the new formula. I'm going to try that out. I was also told that FPP, they also make their own kind of HC formula. So I'm probably going to try that out next time I need to buy some. We'll see how the results are. And before we wrap up, a big shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. When I first created mattdayphoto.com 10 years ago, I did it with Squarespace. This was long before they ever decided to sponsor my channel, but I chose Squarespace because it was just a no-brainer. They had everything I needed in one place, and all these years later, they're still continuing to build and add new features to their service, all while keeping it extremely easy to use while you do it yourself. Drag and drop customization, tons of different templates to choose from, along with 24/7 award-winning customer service that are always there when you need them. You can share your work there, have a place where people can contact you or even schedule appointments. You can even set up your own online store. Since I launched mattdayphoto.com, I've sold my own zines, photo books, prints, and merch all through my own website. No need to use a third-party service, and they also have tons of different plugins from third parties to keep everything in one place. Keeping track of your inventory, shipping fulfillment, it's all a breeze with their built-in tools. It's never been easier to build your own website, and you can start a free trial by going to squarespace.com/mattday. Use the promo code MATTDAY at checkout for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thank you all for watching this video. There will be more Life on Film episodes coming. Again, I've got the HP5 at 6400 we'll take a look at. Some Tri-X, both in 35 and 120, pushed to 3200. We can see how it holds up against the HP5. I have my own predictions on that, but let me know if you guys enjoyed this video, if you have any questions or anything else you'd like to see kind of in this same style. Let me know. I really appreciate you all watching these videos, leaving the comments, and hope you're all having a good, safe holiday season. Actually, when this video goes live, it'll be my 33rd birthday. So when I started this YouTube channel, I was 23 years old. So, yep. Thank you to everybody who has been here since the beginning, and thank you to anyone who is here new. If you're new here, there are a lot of different videos on the channel you can check out, but that's it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you guys soon.